Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're digging into some really transformative ideas, all focused on this powerful concept, how to build your own rich life. What I found really interesting in the material we looked at is how it challenges so many of our standard beliefs about money.
That's right. And our goal today is to kind of cut through all the usual noise and pull out the strategies you can actually use. Things that empower you to consciously design a life where money serves your goals, not, the other way around. We'll be highlighting some key nuggets that might genuinely surprise you, offering clear steps. So yeah, let's unpack this and see what stands out most to you.
Okay, let's kick things off with something really fundamental. Our mental approach, our mindset around money. The sources bring up this powerful idea called invisible scripts. These are like the unconscious beliefs we pick up from parents, society, and they often dictate our financial choices without us even knowing it, like internal rules we never agreed to.
And what's really fascinating is the comparison the material draws between how we handle food and how we handle money. Think about it. How often do we sort of ignore calorie intake, maybe eat more than we realize, debate tiny details about different diets, but never actually start one?
Yeah, sounds familiar.
It's shockingly similar to how we often avoid tracking our spending. We overspend, argue about things like APR, the annual percentage rate, what borrowing actually costs, but we don't implement a real plan, which really makes you ask yourself, are you ignoring your finances or maybe just getting bogged down in the details instead of taking action?
And that leads to maybe an uncomfortable truth, the sources point out. The problem and the solution is you. Now, for someone listening who feels genuinely overwhelmed by things outside their control, the economy maybe,
Yeah.
how does the material suggest embracing that personal responsibility without it feeling, well, impossible?
That's a great point because there is this common victim culture around money. We hear it all the time, right? I can't save anything, or, oh, the stock market's just gambling. But the material shows that actually many people who say this miss out on potentially hundreds of thousands in gains just from not acting.
Right.
It really stresses that starting small is crucial, absolutely vital. Getting going, even with just, say, $20 or $50 a month, is way more important than endless research on the perfect strategy that you never actually start. It encourages you to think critically. Are those common complaints really true for you, or are they maybe excuses holding you back?
And it's also about losing the guilt, right? The core idea seems to be spend extravagantly on things you love and cut costs mercilessly on things you don't. It's not about deprivation, it's about conscious spending, so you can actually spend more on what you really value.
Exactly. Building on that, let's get practical. One huge big win that often gets overlooked, your credit score. So many people don't realize a good credit score can literally save them tens of thousands of dollars, especially on big things like a mortgage.
Tens of thousands.
Really? Yeah, seriously, like the example given, a $200,000 30-year mortgage. With a high FICO score, maybe 760 plus, you might pay around $355,000 total. But drop that score down to the low 600s, maybe 620, 639, that total could jump over $425,000.
Whoa.
That's over $70,000 more, just in interest. It's staggering.
It really is. I mean, $70,000 just for having a better score. That's eye-opening. And it gets even more intense looking at credit card debt. The sources give some pretty startling examples, like a $1,000 iPhone. If you finance it and only make minimum payments at, say, 14% APR, it could take over 9 years to pay off and cost an extra $732 in interest.
Oof.
And get this, a $10,000 furniture purchase. Over 32 years to pay off, costing more than $13,000 just in interest. And that doesn't even count opportunity cost. That $10,000 invested at 8% could have grown to $27,000.
It's easy to see how people fall into this trap. And, it often circles back to those invisible money scripts we talked about. They lead people to just ignore the debt instead of facing it. The material says over 75% of people in debt don't even know exactly how much they owe.
75%.
Yeah, and 95% don't know their debt payoff date. It's crazy. But the good news is there is a clear path out. The sources lay out 5 steps. Figure out your total debt, try negotiating your APR down, create a solid payment plan, decide where that payment money comes from, and then crucially automate it. Think about the Dumb Dan versus Smart Sally debt example. Paying a fixed $100 instead of the minimum on a $5,000 card debt at 14% APR. It cuts the interest from over $6,300 paid over 25 plus years down to under $2,550 paid off in just over 6 years. Consistent action makes a massive difference.
Switching gears slightly, The sources have some, let's say, strong opinions about traditional banks. They mention things like Wells Fargo getting fined $1 billion for illegally opening accounts. The message seems to be skeptical, be informed. Banks aren't always looking out for your best interest.
Right. It encourages you to think critically about where your money actually lives. The sources recommend looking for high-interest, low-hassle accounts. Schwab gets mentioned as a good option, and it highlights that while savings account interest is, quote, essentially meaningless for real wealth building, we're talking tiny amounts.
Right, pennies.
Yeah, pennies. But it's still important to separate checking, for everyday spending from savings for specific goals, vacation, emergency fund, whatever. The key is shifting your focus from picking up those pennies and savings interest to the big wins, like investing. 1 year of smart investing could be worth like 500 years of savings account interest.
Wow, 500 years. Okay, and here's something empowering. You can negotiate almost anything. The sources even give actual scripts you can use to call your bank, try to get fees waived, annual fees, overdraft fees, or even lower your credit card APR. There's this great anecdote about someone saving over $250 on ATM fees just by calling and asking. It's a reminder, right, if you don't ask.
The answer is always no,
Yeah.
exactly.
So building on that idea of taking control, let's talk investing. The sources call it the single most effective way to get rich.
Mm.
And they tackle that common fear head on. People are afraid of possibly losing money in the stock market when they will certainly run out of money if they don't invest.
That's such a core insight. And the Smart Sally versus Dumb Dan investing example, it shows the power of starting early perfectly. Remember, Smart Sally invests $200 a month for just 10 years, ages 35 to 45, then stops.
Okay.
Dumb Dan invests $100 a month, but for twice as long, 20 years, from 45 to 65. By age 65, Sally has around $181,000. Dan only has about $118,000.
Even though he invested for double the time.
Exactly. Despite investing for twice as long, it just hammers home how time compound interest is your biggest ally.
You know, that Sally example really hits home. Makes you wish you'd started yesterday, right? So, okay, if investing is so crucial, who shouldn't we be listening to? The sources, they pull no punches on experts. They talk about how TV pundits just can't predict the market and how missing just the 10 best days of market performance over 15 years, it could slash your returns from maybe 7.7% down to like 2.96%.
Ouch.
Yeah. So the advice is ignore the noise. Don't try to time the market.
And the material also kind of debunks the myth that you absolutely need traditional financial advisors and fancy mutual funds. It points out, historically, some advisors kept clients in failing companies, even those Morningstar 5-star ratings. Not great predictors of future success. And this is crucial, that seemingly small 1% fee advisors or funds might charge. Over decades, it can eat up 30% of your total returns.
30%. Just from a 1% fee, that's shocking.
It really is. So the clear recommendation, look for a fee-only advisor, someone who's a fiduciary. That's a legal term meaning they have to put your financial interests first.
Okay.
Always.
Okay, fee-only fiduciary. Got it. So what's the alternative they champion? Simple, low-cost stuff. Index funds, target date funds.
Exactly. They automatically diversify for you. Fees are usually tiny, like 0.1% to 0.3% versus that 1% or more. And historically, they tend to outperform those actively managed funds anyway.
Makes sense.
But this brings up another common mistake. The sources tell this story. Someone put money into a Roth IRA, great move, tax-advantaged retirement account for 10 years, but they never actually picked any investments inside the account.
Oh, no.
Yeah. It was just sitting there like a glorified savings account. They missed out on an estimated $9,000 in completely effortless tax-free growth. It just shows opening the account is step one. You have to actually invest the money in it.
Right. Crucial step. Okay, so we've talked mindset, debt, investing. Now, what about managing day-to-day money? We always hear about budgets, but the sources here are pretty harsh, calling traditional budgeting worthless advice that usually fails in like 2 days.
Laughs slightly. Yeah, they don't hold back.
Instead, they propose a conscious spending plan, which sounds less painful. The analogy I liked was, instead of counting every single calorie, you just make sure your plate has a good balance. Protein, carbs, fats. So here, it's about allocating your money intentionally into 4 buckets. Fixed costs, 50-60%. Investments, 10%. Savings goals, 5-10%. And then guilt-free spending, 20-35%.
And that shift is powerful because it lets you spend on what you love without feeling guilty. The examples are great, like John the partier. Makes 6 figures, spends over $21,000 a year going out restaurants, bars. But he saves a ton because he cuts mercilessly elsewhere. Doesn't decorate his apartment, doesn't take big vacations. It's his choice.
Okay.
Or Julie, the nonprofit employee, earns $40K. saves over $6,000 a year.
Mhm.
Super disciplined about cooking at home, shares rent, and absolutely prioritizes her automated savings and investments. It's all about your conscious priorities.
And the absolute key to making this whole conscious spending plan actually work, automation. The sources call it the single most profitable system you ever build.
Hmm.
It admits, we humans get bored, we get distracted. So the system has to work for you. Even if, and I love this quote, you're eaten alive by a Komodo dragon.
Chuckles. It's a memorable image, isn't it? But it drives the point home. Our willpower isn't reliable long term. Life gets in the way. Automation ensures the money goes where it's supposed to without you needing to think about it every month. Like the example of Michelle. Her system automatically pulls her 401k contribution.
That's the employer retirement plan.
Right. Then it transfers money to her Roth IRA, funds different savings buckets, wedding, house down payment, emergency fund, all before she even sees the money hit her main account. Bills get paid automatically by credit card. The card gets paid off automatically from checking. Boom. It turns hours of potential stress into maybe a 5-minute check-in each month. Think about how much time and mental energy you could free up with that.
That sounds pretty good, actually. Okay, so automating the system is crucial. Now, money obviously touches everything, especially big life stuff. Relationships, major purchases. Let's talk student loans first. Surprisingly, the sources often frame them as potentially an excellent financial decision.
Yeah, which might sound counterintuitive. But the reasoning is that college grads typically earn over $1 million more in their lifetime than high school grads.
$1 million more. Okay, that's significant.
So when it comes to paying them back, the material suggests kind of a hybrid approach. Don't just focus on paying off debt, but also invest simultaneously. Even if the interest rates seem similar, the power of long-term compounding, especially in your 20s and 30s, plus tax advantages from investing, you just can't make that up later. So it's about balance, not necessarily an all-or-nothing attack on the debt.
Interesting perspective. What about a trickier situation, helping parents who might be in debt? The sources acknowledge this is tough. Parents often don't ask for help, maybe out of embarrassment.
Very true. The advice is to approach gently. Ask questions about their history with money, try to understand without judgment, and focus on helping them implement maybe just 1 or 2 major actions. They call it the 85% solution. Don't try to overhaul everything at once. Just find the biggest leverage points.
Okay, small, impactful steps. And what about with partners? Money talks can be awkward.
Crucial, though. Normalize talking about it. A really key insight for couples where earnings aren't equal. Instead of just splitting everything 50-50, consider splitting core expenses proportionally based on income.
Proportionally, how does that work?
So, say one partner earns $5,000 a month, the other earns $4,000, total income is $9,000. If rent is $3,000 instead of $1,500 each, the higher earner pays their proportion, maybe around $680, and the lower earner pays theirs, about $1,320. It aligns the burden with the ability to pay. Can really prevent resentment and build harmony. Simple, but effective.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. Fair. Okay, what about big buys? Cars and houses. For cars, the advice is avoid objectively bad decisions, like models that depreciate super fast. And keep your car for longer, like over 7 years, for real savings. There's this wild example of using a service called Fighting Chance to negotiate a new car. They pitted like 17 dealers against each other
Yeah.
and ended up buying the car for $2,000 under the invoice price. Shows the power of negotiation, right?
Absolutely. And for housing, the advice is pretty conservative. Aim for that 20% down payment if you can, mainly to avoid PMI private mortgage insurance. That's just extra money you pay the lender each month.
Right, doesn't build your equity.
Exactly. And understand the true cost of owning. It's often 40-50% higher than just the mortgage payment once you add in taxes, insurance, maintenance, maybe HOA fees. They also kind of debunk the myth that house prices always go up, factor in inflation, all those costs. Historically, net prices haven't always increased, so view it realistically. It's a place to live, a purchase, not purely an investment guaranteed to make you rich.
Okay, lots of practical advice there. So wrapping this all up, what does this mean for you, the listener? It really feels like the core message is you have the power. You can consciously design your financial life, from understanding those hidden scripts to automating your system, negotiating better. The path to your rich life is within your control.
Indeed. And remember, money itself is just one part, a small but important part of a rich life. The real goal isn't just the number on a screen. It's the freedom that number gives you. Freedom to pursue relationships, experiences, to give back. Getting your finances sorted takes some effort up front, no doubt, but the rewards, they really do far outweigh the work involved.
Ultimately, the message seems clear. You don't need to be some Wall Street guru to get rich. You don't need to live like a monk. You can become, well, extraordinary just by setting up a simple system. Make the tough choices once, automate them, and then spend the rest guilt-free on what matters to you.
Which leads to maybe the final question for you to think about today. If you could truly live your definition of a rich life, forgetting the numbers for a second, what would that actually look like? And what's one small automated step you could take, maybe even this week, to start making that vision a reality?